Hello, my name's Chris, what's yours? Welcome back to Marathon Man, where I'm going through Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you join me at the third Doctor's penultimate story. I love Doctor Who, and partaking of this marathon is only reaffirming that. It's proved itself time and time again, enough that a rough patch does nothing for my feelings for it, except to convince me to weather the storm. I love it regardless. I've never particularly liked the Monster of Peladon. In fact, actually, I've actively disliked it. It was one of the few stories that I was actively dreading when I started this marathon, and now its time has come. After a fairly underwhelming time on Exelon, the last thing I needed was that second visit to Peladon. And what's more, as I near the end of the Age of John, I find myself thinking forward to his final story, and I discovered, you know what, I'm not particularly excited about that one either. The Time Monster may have been excellent, following on from a very strong season 10, and then Invasion of the Dinosaurs followed that up with, an incredibly strong story, even if there were some, tiny aesthetic drawbacks. So, have I got to sort of come up to terms with the idea that maybe I think season 11 is subpar? I don't know if I'm going to go that far yet, but what I am confident enough saying is that I don't think it's a decent enough send-off for the third Doctor. So with all of this swirling around my brain as I get ready to watch a story that last time I rated in my all-time bottom 5 of all of Doctor Who, I feel quite weary. You'd think I'd be well up for it considering how much I enjoyed that first trip to Peladon, but you'd be mistaken. The curse was lifted, but the monster still lurks. After all, there have been stories on this marathon that have surprised me, I love Doctor Who, and this marathon is only reaffirming that. It persuades you, it can make you change your mind. So, has it made me change my mind this time? Big fat no. The Curse of Peladon was undoubtedly a high point of the Pertwee years, rich in its world building, well-drawn characters, intriguing exploration of a planet realising itself as a small part of something greater, neatly sketched political allegory of contemporary real-world issues, nicely continuing to coincide with some as I watch from 2024, and unprecedented use of an established monster from the show's past to tell its tale that the very idea of revisiting all of this is positively tempting in the possibilities it offers up. Alas, it isn't to be. It never is either. It is a mere shadow of its forebear, an unnecessary footnote stretched out to become 150% the length of that sterling original. Where once Peladon was a place in Doctor Who history worth visiting, now more than half of the episodes set there are complete duds. It isn't just that it's an inferior sequel. I mean, I can live with those. Inferior sequels don't always have to be bad to be inferior, for one thing. Because I've never really understood that not as good as the original criticism that's often levelled at sequels. Okay, fine, but is it any good as well? It can be not as good as the original, but still be a fairly decent piece of work in its own right. If it isn't, fine, then get upset about it. So I am. When a sequel is bad as an individual piece of work, then I think comparisons with the original's quality can be employed as criticism. And what's more, when it comes to the Monster of Peladon, I think how closely related it is to that previous story has to be taken into account. Especially as, to me, it feels like Hales had successfully and effectively built the world of Peladon first time around, and so now he thinks he could just set a story there with minimal effort. The thing he seems to have overlooked this time is that there was more to the Curse of Peladon than Peladon itself, and that's something that's sorely missing from this one. So while I wouldn't say it takes away from how good the Curse of Peladon is, it kind of does besmirch Peladon itself as a setting in the fictional world of Doctor Who as a place worth visiting, because I guess you should only go back there if a great idea invites you. What's missing from the Monster of Peladon is that great idea. The first story had something to say and found an interesting way to say it. This story doesn't seem to have been thought up beyond someone saying, let's do another one set on Peladon, and everyone else going, yeah, alright then, yeah, okay, Brian Howes repurposed his Ice Warriors last time with very satisfying results. I mean, using their perceived villainy, because the last 2 times we'd seen them, they were pretty much your typical Troughton era baddie monsters, to lull you into a false sense of security, and then evolve them as a race to prove that they're not always the villains. They're, the shades of grey there, and put them ultimately on the side of the Doctor. It did make The Curse of Peladon a really meaty and interesting and entertaining story. It was a simple but effective move in that it drove the plot forward as well. I'm not saying that he should have repeated the trick here and had the Ice Warriors look like they were going to be villains, only to, surprise, surprise, be on the side of good again, because that would have been reductive. Now, it could be argued that he did pull the same trick again, and now that we'd seen them be good, having them turn out to be the villains is yet another surprise, except that is actually more reductive than just rehashing the Curse of Peladon's twist wholesale. Yeah, they're just monsters again now. It's a little bit like thumbing your nose at what a cracking job you did last time. Keep them as good guys now. Rehabilitated Doctor Who monsters. What a thought. And one that's definitely in keeping with the Pertwee era's sensibilities. Or have some of them be good and then a faction of them be in league with the villains. I think that would have been the next logical step in the trajectory of the Ice Warriors. If you have a story, 2 stories where they're just monsters equal bad, and then to play with that and have them be on the side of the heroes the next time you see them, the next time you see them after that, if some of them are good and some of them aren't, well then you're always going to be kept guessing on any subsequent reappearance. Now, obviously this is a rogue faction, but all of the Ice Warriors we meet in this story are wrong-uns. Now, having an Ice Warrior mortified by the actions of his superior Azixia, that would have been so interesting, but instead we get what feels like yet another backward step, and in a place which felt like it was so progressive last time. So it feels all the more noticeable and all the less desirable. Having the Ice Warriors revert to being the villains feels like exactly the least interesting thing to do with them at this point. Combined with a very plodding plot with some not great acting, and it all adds up to, for the second time in a row, to a feeling of why bother? Yeah, you can pinpoint to some decent performances in this, and that's why I said some not great acting. I'm not saying all of it is, but there's too much of it that's prominent that it can't help but dent the story. First of all, you've got that really atrocious guard that bursts into the throne room in part 1.
Return to their work.
Your Majesty, Lord Ortron, the miners have attacked the Federation army. They escaped into the tunnels.
But then there's also Queen Thalira, who's at the forefront. And she provides decent enough stuff for Sarah to bounce off, but she doesn't exactly go toe-to-toe with her.
You've just got to stand up for yourself. It would be different if I was a man. But I'm only a girl.
Now, just a minute. There's nothing only about being a girl, Your Majesty.
Is easily the best line in it, and it does suggest a better story might have been to focus on the misogyny inherent in Peladon society. It's hinted at in the first story and here, and I think, now that Peladon has a queen, much more could have been made of this and given Sarah a bit more interesting stuff to do. Lest we forget, she's still basically the new companion at this point. Yes, she has shown some amazing chemistry with Pertwee and shown us what she's capable of in her 3 stories before, but she's still got quite a long way to go to prove herself after Jo was so magnificent. And beyond that really, really, really good line, the Monster of Peladon doesn't really give her the chance to do that. Frank Gatliff as Ortron does indeed say his words well, but I can't get round the fact that this is just Hepesh all over again. And in my video on Death to the Daleks, I said how Terry Nation gave himself such a small template that he made it harder for himself to bring the changes, and that's also true here of Hales. Except here, Hales didn't need to have been so confined. Just because it was set on Peladon didn't dictate that Hales had to repeat himself as much as he does. What happens every time I watch this story is that when Ortron sort of redeems himself and Eckersley is revealed to be, surprise, surprise, oh my god, in league with the Ice Warriors, I've not been invested in the story for such a long time that moments like that, which should land and have an impact, just kind of fall by the wayside. And it also doesn't help whenever I watch it that each of its 6 episodes feels like the 45-minute length employed by season 22 and the 21st Century show. I just can't get on with it. The plot tells me there is intrigue happening, but I am not intrigued. It all feels inconsequential when compared with the, machinations at play in The Curse of Peladon, so it will always feel to some degree like a flatter and flabbier companion piece to one of Doctor Who's actual triumphs, resulting in something I unfortunately consider to be one of Doctor Who's disasters. Now, I've never watched this story and enjoyed it, so I must now just be at the point where, I just don't like it. Now, obviously, I never take marathons for granted, and I have come around on certain stories before, but the more I watch The Monster of Peladon, and the more it never gets any better for me, I just kind of have to then have more of a sense of dread to quell the next time its turn comes. And so this isn't through want of trying. I've watched it many, many, many times, but I just have never, ever liked The Monster of Peladon. So, something positive to note is that after losing focus and blurring his vision slightly in the very last story, Pertwee is back on form again this time and manages to engage with the material spectacularly. The scene where Sarah believed him to be dead is incredibly well played by Pertwee, and another example of how his Doctor is being given a few more lighter moments than he might have been given throughout the earlier parts of his reign. 375 episodes down, and now only 6 episodes left with his Doctor, and it has me feeling like a little bit strange, because after him pressing me incredibly right off the bat, there have been times where I've sort of sensed him not dropping the ball, but maybe going off the boil a little bit, and then he comes back guns blazing just as it's time for me to say goodbye to him. It's weird, I don't feel as emotional about his upcoming departure as I did with Hartnell or Troughton, but I am finding myself sort of quite affected by my feelings when it comes to I don't think he's getting the send-off he deserves. After Death to the Daleks and now The Monster of Peladon, I think he deserved better. And given my historic feelings of the very next story, Planet of the Spiders, I'm not entirely sure he's going to get it. But even if those suspicions are confirmed, I've had a great time with the Third Doctor, and I have learned, of course, that during a rough patch, to weather the storm. I love Doctor Who, and partaking in this marathon is only reaffirming that.
Now, just a minute. There's nothing only about being a girl, Your Majesty.
A plethora, but if you twisted my arm, I'd probably say that terrible guard in part 1. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this moaning about the monster, then you know how YouTube works. Please do give it a thumb up and share it around. I would really appreciate it. And what do you think of this one? Is it a worthy, even superior sequel to The Curse of Peladon, or does it muck nearly everything up? Does it continue to make the Ice Warriors more rounded, or does it do the least interesting thing possible with them? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for the Third Doctor's Swan Song. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and I'll see you at the cabaret.